Greetings and welcome back to the World Numismatic News as we take a look at numismatic legends and fables. Today we'll examine the 1844 seated Liberty dime, the coin that would become known in numismatic circles as the Little Orphan Annie dime. This strange nickname was awarded to the coin by one Frank C. Ross, a longtime contributor and columnist for Hobbies magazine, and one-time secretary of the Heart of American Numismatic Association of Kansas City, and apparent charter member of the Central States Numismatic Society as well. He claimed that, and I quote, "The coin has no buyers and was just an orphan in the coin world." He contended that the coin was undervalued and its true rarity was significantly underreported, even claiming that it was far scarcer than the 1846, which has a mintage of nearly half as many coins than the 1844. So let's examine his claims for a second, shall we? The 1846 has a mintage of 31,300 coins, making it a legitimately rare coin. That's fair enough. But the 1844, our Orphan Annie, has a mintage of 72,500. Now, admittedly, that is a low mintage for the era, but it hardly makes it one of the rarest Liberty-seated dimes around. In fact, in terms of lowest mintage, it doesn't even make the top 10 for the series, barely squeezing in under the top 20 at number 19. Now, although that does include all of the Carson City coins, which does tend to skew the numbers just a little bit. To explain this discrepancy in his account, Ross came up with ever-increasingly absurd accounts of what exactly happened to the 1844 dime to make it as scarce as he claims it to be. And if you stick around, we'll take a look at some of the more memorable of these tall tales at the end of the video. But why go to all this trouble to begin with? Did he genuinely believe, or was there something else at play? Well, according to most accounts, Ross himself started to collect, or well, I should really say hoard, 1844 dimes around 1927 to the 1931 timeframe, and coincidentally and promptly started to hype the coin shortly afterwards. So, since we don't have an exact date, let's just start with the earliest account, which is 1927. If we look in the Star Rare Coin Encyclopedia published by B. Max Mell in 1927, the 1844 dime is listed as being worth 20 to 30 cents depending on grade, only marginally higher than any other coin for this era, and worth less than the 1846 at 25 to 75 cents each. Pretty much what you would expect, in line with the mintage figures. Now, B. Max Mell was one of the most prominent and prolific coin dealers of that age, and I'm pretty sure that he would have noticed if there was a shortage of 1844 dimes in the market and would have adjusted his price guide accordingly. Now, as I said, around this time, Ross started to hype the 1844 dime as rare, while supposedly secretly buying them up for himself in the background. Essentially, it seems that he was trying to corner the market. The stories began to spread, took root, and it wasn't long before lots of people actually started to believe in some or other version of why the coin was supposedly rare. By the time that the first edition of the Red Book was issued in 1946, it dedicated an entire section completely to this coin and why it was supposedly rare. That was later removed completely, and today the Red Book doesn't even make any special mention of the Orphan Annie whatsoever. If we fast forward then to 1963, the value of this coin was listed at $175 in mint state compared to only $85 for the 1846. Now, by the 1970s, the mist was beginning to lift, and you see price guides once again reflecting a more realistic perspective on the coin, although still overpriced by any reasonable standards, to be fair. Now, ironically, around 1975 or so, the renowned collector Terry Brand once again started to hoard these coins, inspired, at least in part, by all the fables surrounding the issue. When his estate was dispersed in 2003, Heritage Auctions was tasked with selling the 612 1844 Orphan Annie dimes that he had managed to collect over the decades. It is still not known how many of the coins Frank Ross himself was able to accrue or sell before he passed away in 1955, but an auction listing from H.M. Bolender from October of 1955 selling the Frank C. Ross collection lists 3 1846 dimes, but not a single 1844. It even states that he allegedly had a standing arrangement with coin dealer Burdett Johnson to buy any 1846 dime that he got in stock, as he was actively hoarding them. So does that mean that the whole thing was just an elaborate sleight of hand, and that he was actually trying to suppress the value of the 1846 by hyping up the 44? Or was the Bolender catalog just mistaken in the date? So that makes a good segue to the tall tales told to explain why the 1844 dime was supposedly so scarce, even though it really isn't. Number 1. The entire mintage was improperly alloyed and were melted back down by the mint, as a result, with only a few coins escaping into circulation. Now, this one is easily disproven, as the report of the Assay Commission would have made note of that. Number 2. A bank in New Orleans requested 50,000 dimes, and almost the entire 1844 mintage was sent and disappeared into circulation in the South, where they were lost during the Civil War 20 years later. Number 3. 50,000, again that same number, were shipped by boat for some mysteriously unknown reason and promptly lost at sea during a hurricane. Not an entirely unheard of occurrence, but again, absolutely no relation to reality. Number 4. Somehow, almost the entire mintage of 1844 dimes ended up in Chicago in 1871 and were caught in the Great Chicago Fire. The heat melted the coins down and they were thusly lost. Number 5. In an equally silly explanation, where again almost the entire mintage was for some reason assembled in Pennsylvania in 1889, when the South Fork Dam collapsed and caused the Jonestown flood of that same year. Again, all the coins were magically swept away by the floodwaters, never to be seen again. Number 6 has the mintage being bought up by a wealthy speculator, which then disappeared for some, again, unknown reason. Now, ironically, this one holds the most truth to reality, as it turns out. Some of the stories do get a little more inventive, though. For instance, 70,000 of the dimes were shipped overland to California during the gold rush, as the 49ers required small change. But the shipment was intercepted by either Native American braves who killed everyone and took the coins and then simply vanished, or Mexican bandits who stole the coins and absconded with them down to Mexico, where they were likely melted down, or, depending on exactly who tells you the story, just regular Wild West highwaymen who stole the coins and then buried them somewhere in the desert. The gunmen were later caught and sentenced to hang, though they never revealed the location of their buried treasure. So to this day, as legend holds it, there are thousands of 1844 dimes buried somewhere, waiting to be found. And then, lastly, when the Mexican-American War broke out in 1846, the Army's paymaster requested a large sum of smaller coins, especially dimes, so that he could pay the regular soldiers. Once American soldiers reached Mexico City, they got bored and sought the attention of the local señoritas, who promptly rebuked their advances. But as luck would have it, one of the soldiers was trained as a jeweler and fashioned a few of these dimes into a neat little bracelet. This gesture was enough to win the heart of one of these young ladies, and soon every young GI was making the 1844 dimes into bracelets, necklaces, earrings, and every sort of trinket that could serve as a love token. When the US Army was recalled and they went back home, the dimes remained in Mexico with the woman and were somehow never seen again. Fanciful tales, to be sure, but without a single shred of evidence to back up even one of them. In truth, the 1844 seated Liberty dime is quite an ordinary coin, apart from the low mintage number, all of which was struck from a single die pair, with only a second die marriage reserved for striking a small number of proof coins. So not even any real varieties to search for either. In 2023, a very pleasing 1844 Orphan Annie seated Liberty dime was sold by Heritage Auctions, housed in a PCGS slab with a grade of MS65 for $33,600. Subscribe to WNN and activate all notifications with the bell icon to know when new videos are released. For the World Numismatic News, I am Numisman saying thank you for watching, keep collecting, and have a fantastic day.